Bombshell tonight, D4VD, David Anthony Burke, has somehow managed to become a jail VIP, getting hot meals including turkey, cranberry sauce, dressing, dinner rolls. What? This after we discover his bizarre one-word post following Celeste's murder. That one word? Decay.
1 septillion times more likely. That is the number a DNA expert gave a Los Angeles courtroom. 1 septillion. That is a 1 followed by 20, 4 zeros. For context, there are roughly 8 billion people on the planet. The statistical likelihood that the blood in David Anthony Burke's garage belonged to anyone other than Celeste Rivas Hernandez is so astronomical it essentially does not exist. And yet, that is not the number that defines this case. The number that defines this case is one word, posted by Burke himself after the murder, that word decay. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Endless Cryme, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Picture a grand piano. Picture a 5-bedroom mansion in the Hollywood Hills with a pool, a hot tub, a private gym. Picture a blue inflatable kiddie pool set up in the garage of that mansion. That inflatable pool is the visual anchor of this entire tragedy, because according to prosecutors, that 20 pool from a department store is where David Anthony Burke, known to his fans as D4VD, allegedly used a chainsaw to render down the body of a 14-year-old girl. He didn't just kill her. He didn't just hide her. He attempted to erase her, but you cannot erase a person. You can only delay the discovery. And decay?
Well, you know, Nancy, many artists channel their unacceptable impulses into their art, but there are some who act them out. And this man was charged with acting out the things that he would say. And the thing that strikes me about David Burke is that he keeps telling on himself with these texts, with the title of his song, with the interviews and the jokes and the materials of threatening or joking about cutting off this girl's arms, or the other word for disarticulated, that he said that his phone was in China being taken apart. Well, a phone doesn't have limbs. That in shrink world would be considered something called a Freudian slip, where the word just kind of slips out that you're actually meaning. And I think if we look, there is a cascade of incidents where he keeps kind of telling on himself in all of these different ways.
As Burke himself seemed to know, is patient. Burke met Celeste Rivas when she was 11 years old. By the time she was 13, prosecutors allege he had begun a sexual relationship with her. He was 18. When law enforcement contacted him and told him she was a minor, he didn't stop. He allegedly drove to her home, paid a classmate $1,000 to give her a phone so they could stay in contact. He pursued a child, and when that child began to understand what was happening to her, when she started to threaten his career, he allegedly ended her life. The final text
Prosecutors give a moment-by-moment account of Celeste Rivas last night. It was a stream of text messages with D4VD before her phone goes forever silent when she gets to his home. Now, in these texts, the last one, her final text is, "Girly Pop, I'm almost there. Open your door if you're home." Girly Pop, I'm almost there. Open your door if you're home. Straight out to Annie Elise joining us, star of Seriously. Annie Elise, her text before she was ordered up like a pepperoni pizza that night by D4VD, her texts were increasingly frustrated and upset. Why?
She was frustrated with him because she didn't feel that he was committed to her, that he was seeing other women, and that she was being discarded. And not only in the text messages in the 24 hours leading up to her murder, but 5 weeks before that, she sends him a text message saying, "I feel like all we do is have sex. I want more for my life than that." A few months prior to that, she expressed regret about the pregnancy termination. And so you see this pattern building with her where she's starting to realize this guy doesn't care about me the way that I thought he did. He's making me compromise a lot of my values. And then finally, 24 hours before she's murdered, she sends him a text message threatening to end his career, saying, "I will damage anything. I will ruin you. I will end your career." And then the day of the murder, she texts him, I'll give you one more chance. And then, as we know, according to the prosecutors, he ordered her up with the Uber, delivered her to his house, and she died less than 30 minutes later.
The response to open the gate from Burke is, I got you. Gate open, door unlocked. And in under an hour, according to prosecutors, she's dead. Dave Mack, what can you tell me about a bizarre one-word post from David Anthony Burke, aka D4VD, right after Celeste's murder?
One word, Nancy: decay. All right, I don't know how they're going to utilize all this when at trial, but there's so much evidence, Nancy, within these text messages that D4VD communicated with Celeste and with others, that we're talking 8,000 to 10,000 text messages just between D4VD and Celeste. And they talk about everything. He goes on, I mentioned this before, Nancy, he was setting up his cover story, his alibi, while she was...
Ever sent Girly Pop, I'm almost there. Open your door if you're home. She arrived. Less than 30 minutes later, according to prosecutors, she was dead. What followed was not a crime of passion. It was a crime of logistics. Prosecutors allege Burke used a chainsaw to dismember Celeste's body, placing her remains in a cadaver bag and stowing them in the trunk of his Tesla. He then left the vehicle parked, went on a concert tour, and let the summer heat do its work. Friends and business associates noticed a strong smell of decay around his home and vehicle. They noticed, they asked questions, and Burke, according to the prosecution, lied. The car was eventually towed. The impound lot manager called police because of the smell and the flies. That is how Celeste Rivas was finally found. Not because someone confessed, not because someone led authorities to her, but because the body, left to decompose for months, could no longer be ignored. The evidence is not subtle.
First item was a blood stain that was found in the Tesla. It did confirm that it was Celeste's DNA, and she said the statistic is 1 septillion times, most likely, Celeste's. That is a 1 followed by 24 zeros. Remember, there's like 9 billion people in the whole world. So the fact that this number, this stat is so precise shows that this is Celeste's DNA that was found in the Tesla. Another stain that was collected in the lower trunk was also consistent with Celeste's DNA. Those are the 2 swabs that were taken from the Tesla that confirmed that her DNA was in there. We've got a red stain that was recovered from the rowing machine. That one also showed that it was Celeste's DNA with a septillion chance. That's a crazy number. We also had a blood stain on the Tesla charger in the garage. Also the same thing. It was a septillion chance that it was Celeste's. The green tarp, same thing, same blood stain and same statistic. Inside the bag, again, I believe this is the same bag that had these hand wipes. Our 8th item is the hand wipes, which did match with Celeste's. It was a partial profile. It looks like it's a 3 trillion chance that it is Celeste's, a 3 followed by 12 zeros. Now, whenever David's team got up and tried to ask Samantha about these, they pretty much wanted her to confirm that DNA can be transferred any other way.
That is Sloan on TikTok. Before I go to the rest of our all-star panel, straight out to Joseph Scott Morgan, death investigator, over 10,000 death scenes, deaths of all nature, suicide, natural causes, unexplained, and, of course, homicide. I appreciate what Sloan was just saying. Everything he said was accurate. Did D4VD actually think that he could grab a wet wipe and clean it all up? Did you hear where the blood is? On the rowing machine, on that blow-up kiddie pool he had to put her body in? According to reports, this is all just alleged, so the blood wouldn't get on his floor, but on his floor, in his Tesla, in the front of his Tesla, in the back of his Tesla, in the front trunk of his Tesla. Oh, I forgot, throwing about 11 air fresheners on her dead, disarticulated body. Really? What happened to Celeste, Joe Scott?
Nancy, you and I have known one another for a long, long time. In that period of time, maybe we've ridden in a car together. I know that we have. Have I ever asked you to get into the trunk of the car?
We did at Jacksonville State University, for Pete's sake.
We did. And I'm not going to ask, why why exactly would her DNA be inside of that trunk? Well, we have an answer to that. That's because it appears as though that's where her remains were deposited. Deposited, I remind everyone, and we need to keep coming back to this because this is about Celeste, deposited after he had rendered her down with sharp instruments and put her into multiple conveyances. And one of these conveyances, this bag that they're talking about, has got her DNA on it, right? And then you go back to this wipe, all right? Yeah, I think that it's a fool's errand to think that you can get rid of DNA if you've got some kind of sanitary wipe that's out there. You're going to try to, clean your hands with this sort of thing, and you're not going to transfer your DNA to that. And yeah, I mean, counsel's making a point. They say, well, it can be transferred any number of ways. Yeah, but it's transferred in the sense that this is adjunct to a body that has literally been rendered down and is being stored in the vehicle in which is owned by the accused.
Joe Scott.
Yeah.
Really? Did
Yeah.
you hear the stats on that DNA?
Yeah, the numbers are absolutely mind blowing. This drives defense attorneys crazy at this point in time because these numbers are so astronomical. You heard this young man just talking about a second ago, septillion. Are you kidding me? How do you defeat that? And the only way they can really attack something like this, Nancy, is procedurally. How was it collected? These sorts of things. Did the process break down? But you cannot get past these numbers because they're absolutely astronomical.
Wait, please look at your monitor, Joe Scott. Go back to that, please.
Saw. Yeah.
He is wearing a t-shirt that says, "I love boobs," and people are rubbing oil on his body.
Yeah, what's the nature behind what they're doing? And I think I recognize that young lady that was there from previous videos relative to being in a bathroom. Remember, they're talking in there, and I find this interesting. So let's think about this just for a second, okay? He's surrounded, as we can see, by a lot of people in this environment. These people are actually putting their hands on him, all these other surfaces. It would not surprise me in the least bit if you do have transfer from other people in that house that were under that roof, whether or not they were living there or not. I have no idea.
Can I see Joe Scott?
Yeah.
Please don't take Eric Faddis down that road. Now you've carried him about halfway. You've carried him on your back. That there's going to be unknown DNA. Of course there is, just like in Coburger. Have fun with that to make that your defense argument. But you're right. Guys, let me formally introduce Morgan. Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University that has a world-class criminal procedure program. In fact, I've called on him multiple times out of all the people I could find to help me create reenactments of murders because every move is important. Every move. The murder, the disarticulation of the body, the rendering of the body, the hiding the body, the decomposure. Every single move counts. Professor of Forensics, Jacksonville State University. He's the author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon. He's a star of a hit podcast, Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan, and it goes on and on and on. But he's giving you, well, not really. It was more of a Reader's Digest, a thumbnail about what happened to Celeste, because what happened to her is so upsetting that very often even we gloss over it here, so it won't be so disturbing. I don't know how a jury is going to ingest all of this information, but with the backdrop of D4VD in the grocery aisle singing his song Romantic Homicide, how apropos in this case, Romantic Homicide.
DNA from Celeste was found on a rubber floor mat in the garage, on a rowing machine, on the Tesla charger, on cleaning wipes. The statistical match for each 1 septillion. Burke's defense attorney, Blair Burke, argued that DNA can be transferred, that it can't be determined how long it was there. That is a legal argument. It is not a scientific one, because when you have blood in the garage, blood in the car, and a dismembered body in the trunk, the question is no longer whether the DNA got there. The question is how the victim got there, and on that question, the physical evidence does not speak. It screams. There is also the matter of the tattoo. Celeste had Burke's name tattooed on her ring finger. When her body was found, 2 of her fingers were...
That, and this is according to an interview with the Rolling Stone, and Steve Fisher has talked to the young girl himself, that he sends anime, let's see it, where a young girl's arms are severed.
Nancy, as I mentioned a minute ago, this is a guy who texts and sends out everything like it doesn't matter to him. He's not thinking, but he sends a joke to, well, what he says or is of himself and his alter ego anime character, Itami. Okay. And in this fictional alter ego, Itami, Burke jokes about cutting off the arms of this girl, who, by the way, in the Rolling Stone interview, she's going by the name Jane to protect her own privacy, but he actually is outing himself through his alter ego, Itami, saying he wants to cut her arms off.
Missing. Prosecutors allege he severed them to distance himself from her. He didn't just kill her. He tried to remove the evidence of his ownership. He tried to remove the mark. But you cannot remove a mark that is already burned into the public record. And you cannot outrun a single word you posted to the world. That word. Decay, one word. Posted after Celeste's murder. There is no ambiguity in that word. It is not a metaphor. It is not a poetic flourish. It is a statement of fact. The body was decaying, and Burke knew it. He knew it because he had left it there. The smell was undeniable. The flies were gathering. The process of decomposition was well underway, and he chose that word, decay, as if he were describing the weather. The irony is not subtle. This is a man who built his brand on a song called Romantic Homicide. He performed it on national television. He appeared in a grocery store wearing a shirt splattered with fake blood, talking about how it had been raining outside, how his favorite song to listen to when he was sick was Romantic Homicide. He was playing a character. He was performing violence. And then, prosecutors say he committed it. The performance became reality. The aesthetic became the act. And the word decay, not heartbreak, not loss, not tragedy, was the one he chose to describe what he had done. So where is he now?
Okay, hold on. He's got room service. He doesn't have to eat with general population. They bring him his meals. And we've learned that the LA Food Services has implemented a new hot meal program at Men's Central, carefully designed to meet recommended daily standards for calories, protein, carbohydrates, nutrients, with a team of dietitians and advisors. Call the, quote, most significant improvement in inmate feeding in decades across the country. Wow. Also, here's the menu. Chicken Royale, pasta, cooked spinach, salad. One day, roasted turkey, candied yams, sweet potatoes, green beans, cranberry sauce, salad dressing, dinner roll, pumpkin muffin, my rear end. Why is he getting a pumpkin muffin and chocolate milk? This guy is getting totally babied and coddled. He gets a private escort to the shower, so there's no pick up the soap, please, in the shower. None of that's going on. He's kept away from GP because he might be bullied, while Celeste is dead. Okay, help me out, Dave Mack. Why is he a VIP behind bars?
It comes down to the partial fame that he was achieving, Nancy, as well as that, the accusations against D4VD are beyond the pale. And there are certain aspects of criminal behavior in jail where somebody who targeted or groomed young people, and we're talking 11 years old here, they are looked on worse than regular inmates. So he is being kept away from general population as much to protect himself, from other inmates, as well as the notoriety. Think about it. Somebody taking him out because he's a so-called celebrity might bring something. But you're right when you described him being escorted wherever he goes. He does have a cell to himself. He doesn't have to communicate with anybody. He just gets to be by himself all day long. I think what you're trying to say,
Dave Mack, is he's not having to have an over-amorous roommate. He has a private room service, the works. Even so, straight out to Annie Elise joining us. She's the star of True Crime Podcast, Seriously. Annie, thank you for being with us tonight. Annie, could you describe his mansion? This is a far cry from that.
Yeah, this is very different than his mansion in the Hollywood Hills. In his house, it was a 3-story house. He had a beautiful backyard with a pool, a big grand piano, a gym where he could work out anytime he wanted, multiple bedrooms in the kitchen. It was a massive with a huge island, tons of windows, lots of light, double door refrigerator, every luxury that you could possibly want he had at that house. So now, being stripped down into this jail cell, while you would think that that's great, he still is, to your point, getting certain luxuries.
Let me see here. Annie Elise, correct me if I'm wrong, but did he not have a 5-bed luxury mansion? That's a yes, no.
He is not in general population. He is housed in a single cell in the Twin Towers Correctional Facility, monitored 24 hours a day, checked every 15 minutes. He is escorted everywhere by a sheriff's sergeant with a body camera. He is not eating with the other inmates. He is not showering with the other inmates. He is protected. Breakfast arrives around 6 in the morning. Lunch between 10:30 and 11. Dinner around 5 in the evening. Breakfast and lunch are typically cold. Dinner is the only hot meal. He has about an hour to eat before a deputy collects the tray. He is allowed to shower every 3 days in the presence of 2 staff members and 1 supervisor. No visitors, no television, no funds in his prison account. He is completely isolated, and that isolation is not punishment. It is protection, because inmates who prey on children are not welcome in general population. They are targets, they are beaten, they are killed. Burke is not being punished. He is being shielded from the punishment that would naturally come. He is being coddled. He is being fed. He is being kept alive so that he can stand trial. And make no mistake, he will stand trial. The charges are first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child, and unlawful mutilation of human remains. The special circumstances include lying in wait, murder for financial gain, and murder of a witness to a criminal investigation. He faces life in prison without parole. He faces the death penalty. The determination has not yet been made, but the possibility is real. And yet, even with all of that, even with the DNA, even with the text messages, even with the chainsaw and the inflatable pool and the body in the trunk, there is something that does not fit, something that does not compute. How did a 14-year-old girl end up in the home of a 21-year-old man? How did she get there? How did she travel? The answer is both simple and devastating. Her parents signed...
Tell me about the recent discovery that little Celeste's family signed a waiver, allegedly, for her to travel out of the country to London with David Anthony Burke. Why don't they just hand her over on a silver platter?
Nancy, this has been a really shocking time when we find out that, we question, how is it possible for Celeste Rivas at less than 14 years old? How is it possible for her to travel overseas to London? How is it possible for her to get on a plane? Well, apparently, Celeste Rivas' parents signed legal documentation allowing her to travel with David Anthony Burke. This is something that we've wondered. How did it happen? Remember when her passport was found out there in the Santa Barbara woods? And here we go. She actually got approval from her parents. So they knew exactly what was going on and when it was going on, Nancy.
Straight out to Dr. Cheryl Arrett, joining us out of this jurisdiction, California, licensed clinical forensic psychologist specializing in trauma recovery, PTSD, EMDR. She's at askdrcheryl.com. Dr. Cheryl, thank you for being with us tonight. It just wasn't consent. It was a notarized form that they signed in front of a notary, with the seal, to allow their daughter, unchaperoned, to go to London with D4VD, that guy that dances around in a bloody shirt, him?
I cannot imagine how much those parents must regret having done that. I can't stop thinking about them being in the courtroom and actually viewing the photos of their daughter's body after everything that they cannot unsee, and hearing about how devastated they are. I cannot speak to what they were thinking at the time that they granted this permission, but it is incredibly clear that Celeste was in tremendous danger, and I am sure in retrospect that there are many, many things that these parents must regret.
Regret.
A notarized form allowing her to travel internationally with David Anthony Burke. They signed it in front of a notary with a seal. They gave permission for their daughter to go to London with the man who would later be charged with her murder. And that is the moment this case stops being a crime story and becomes something else, something darker, something that forces us to ask not just what happened, but what were they thinking? What were they seeing? What were they not seeing? And why, after all of this, is the man who did this being fed hot meals while Celeste Rivas is forgotten? That is the ticking clock moment. That is the question that reframes this entire story as a thriller. If a parent can sign away their child's safety with a notarized form, if a man can post the word decay after killing someone, if the justice system can protect the accused while the victim decomposes in a car trunk for months, then what are we actually protecting? What are we actually doing? The moral refrain of this case is simple. It is damning, and it must be repeated. She was 14. She was 14. That is the number that matters. Not 1 septillion, not one word, 14. That was her age. That was her life. That was the number of years she had on this earth before David Anthony Burke allegedly took them away. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was 14 years old. She had a tattoo on her finger that read shh. She had Burke's name on her ring finger. She sent text messages that revealed a girl who was confused, who was scared, who was trying to understand why the man she trusted was discarding her. She threatened to ruin his career. She threatened to expose him. And for that, prosecutors say she was killed. She was dismembered. She was left to rot. The case is proceeding. The preliminary hearing has already taken place. A judge has ruled there is enough evidence to stand trial. The defense has argued that the evidence brief was one-sided and should be sealed. The judge disagreed. The evidence is public. The documents are available. You can read them yourself. You can see the text messages. You can see the DNA analysis. You can see the timeline. It is all there in the public record, filed by the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. And here is the question for you, the viewer. The one question that no courtroom can answer. The one question that lingers after all the evidence is presented. If you were a parent and a 21-year-old man asked to take your 14-year-old daughter to London, what would you do? What would you say? What would you ask? And why did no one ask it? That is the unanswered question. That is the gap in the narrative. That is the silence that speaks louder than any piece of evidence. Because the evidence is clear. The DNA is clear. The word decay is clear. But the failure of the adults around Celeste Rivas to protect her. That is the mystery that remains. That is the tragedy that compounds the tragedy. If you know anything about this case, if you have any information that could help bring justice for Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office is accepting tips. The case file is public.
Yeah, very well might be. Look, we have had instances in the past of extreme artists, right? You think about Cannibal Corpse, Insane Clown Posse, Marilyn Manson. These folks certainly push the envelope. They're provocative, but being that way in the artistic realm is not a crime. And furthermore, it is probably not relevant evidence to this case. The fact that he, sent some video or something, some anime video to some other girl at some point in time to just try to use all of these things against him because he's inflammatory, because he's extreme, I think is going to be character assassination. I think a judge might not let it in.
You mentioned, I think, something about extreme art regarding Marilyn Manson as one of your examples. Didn't multiple women publicly accuse him of sex abuse, physical violence, and grooming? Is that one of your great examples, Faddis?
There were such accusations. I'm not aware of whether those accusations were ever founded or whether they were ever established in court. But yeah, there have been accusations made.
Yes, Marilyn Manson, real name Brian Warner. There are multiple accusations against them. He is not convicted. He has not been charged. No criminal charges have been filed regarding claims of violence, sex assault. There was expired statutes of limitations in some of those cases. But reminder to everyone, there is no statute of limitations for murder. If you know or think you know anything regarding the death of this young girl,
the documents are online. Read them. Look at the evidence and ask yourself, how did this happen? How did a 14-year-old girl end up in the trunk of a Tesla? How did the word decay become the epitaph for a child? Like this video, share it, subscribe to Endless Cryme, turn on notifications, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. And the evidence, in this case, leads to one undeniable conclusion: Celeste Rivas Hernandez was failed by everyone who was supposed to protect her. And the man who allegedly killed her is being fed turkey and cranberry sauce in a jail cell. That is the gap. That is the irony. That is the crime. She was 14.